trend lines are not working in Biden's favor. He needs to do something bold and dramatic to seize the initiative on asylum policy, for example, and reverse these numbers. The one that troubles me the most is on the question of who was the more competent. Joe Biden led Donald Trump by 9 points in 2020, but Trump now leads by 16 points in January 2024. That 25-point shift could be a reflection of people's sense that the president's age is affecting his capacity to govern. And there's very little that Joe Biden can do now to change that perception.
Distinguished guests, please welcome the Honorable Lloyd J. Austin III, Secretary of Defense of the United States of America.
Au-dessus de nos têtes, les énormes obus de nos navires de guerre. Certains...
Oh boy. We got to talk about sleepy Joe Biden, who seemed to almost fall asleep during the D-Day ceremony in Normandy, France, in which a lot of world leaders gathered to commemorate and to remember the sacrifice that was made during World War II, where you had the Allied forces invade the beaches of Normandy, France, and try to take on the Axis powers in order to liberate Europe from Germany. Now, instead of talking about that, or mainly just keeping it about World War II and what happened, no. Biden decided to talk about what's currently going on between Ukraine and Russia, in which it seems like he's celebrating the death of Russian troops. Also, on top of that, during one of his interviews, he talked about how we're now allowing Ukraine to use American-made weapons inside of Russia, which could further escalate the conflict. This is, I think, one of the most important parts of Biden's trip that nobody is really talking about or discussing enough.
Here in Europe, we see one stark example. Ukraine has been invaded by a tyrant bent on domination. Ukrainians are fighting with extraordinary courage, suffering great losses, but never backing down. The numbers are staggering. 350,000 Russian troops dead or wounded. Nearly 1 million people have left Russia because they can no longer see a future in Russia. The United States and NATO and a coalition of more than 50 countries standing strong with Ukraine. We will not walk away. Because if we do, Ukraine will be subjugated, and it will not end there. Ukraine's neighbors will be threatened. All of Europe will be threatened.
Let me ask you about what Vladimir Putin said last night about this authorization of American weapons inside Russia. He said the supply of high-precision weapons to Ukraine for strikes on Russian territory is direct participation in this war. He went on to say that this is the way to serious problems, and again talked about Russia's nuclear capabilities. Does that concern you?
I've known him for over 40 years. He's concerned me for 40 years. He's not a decent man. He's a dictator, and he's struggling to make sure he holds this country together while still keeping this assault going. We're not talking about giving them weapons to strike Moscow, to strike the Kremlin, to strike in just across the border where they're receiving significant fire from conventional weapons used by the Russians to go into Ukraine to kill Ukrainians.
Yeah, so you seen that, you heard that. Okay, I'm not sure if Democrats in the establishment, the military-industrial complex, realizes that their pitch for why we should continue to send hundreds of billions, if not trillions, because eventually we will send trillions. Don't let these people fool you. This is going to be $1 trillion endeavor to defend Ukraine from Russia, which seems to not really be defense anymore. It seems to be offense. Like we're straight up trying to fight Russia, okay, by sacrificing Ukrainian lives. I'm not sure if they realize that their pitch doesn't really make sense, okay, because the whole rationale behind sending probably trillions of dollars to support Ukraine, which again is what we will end up spending on this, is that, well, we're trying to keep Russia from invading NATO by sacrificing Ukrainian lives, as if Russia would actually invade NATO, which essentially would be suicide for their country, for the world. Okay, that would spark another world war. Yeah, but at the same time, they're telling you, well, Russia's weak, right? I mean, we've taken out 350,000+ of their troops, and this is so successful, such a successful operation. Continue to send us money. Well, if Russia is struggling so much, then why is it that you keep telling us that they're going to invade NATO, right? That doesn't really make sense, okay? If so many people are fleeing Russia and they're losing so many troops, right? If they are losing, then I don't understand why you keep putting out this idea that they're actually going to invade NATO as if that is a real possibility. It's not a real possibility, okay? But again, what is essentially happening is that this war has become a war of attrition. And in my opinion, I think that it is much more likely that Vladimir Putin will opt to use nukes in Ukraine before allowing Russia to be humiliated by losing a war with Ukraine, which is supposed to be a much weaker country. And I personally believe that's where the real threat comes in, because again, if you continue to drag this out, in my opinion, that is going to be the conclusion here. And this is why we should try to broker peace, okay? However, Biden, as much as he wants to talk about Putin losing control of Russia and not being able to control what's going on inside his country, Biden can't even control himself, okay? Biden has no clue what's going on. Biden's just taking orders from his handlers, okay? And this story right here from the Wall Street Journal kind of backs that up, because the Democrats are currently freaking out about Joe Biden showing signs of slipping in this Wall Street Journal report that details interviews from Republicans and Democrats that are concerned about Biden's mental capacity, right? His ability to make decisions, to move around, to just do basic things, okay? I personally believe that Joe Biden's probably wearing a diaper at this point. They probably tell Joe Biden when to wipe his butt, okay? Just like Joe Biden seemed to be telling Joe Biden that, hey, you're not supposed to sit down yet during the ceremony. You guys noticed at the beginning of this video, those clips of Joe Biden moving really slow, okay? He was trying to sit down, and he was sitting very slowly, but it was obvious that he should not have started sitting down yet, but because Biden is lacking awareness, he has no idea where he's at or what he's doing. You know, he just seems to be just out of it, right? He has no idea what's going on, okay? He has no social awareness at all, okay? Zero, okay? And this story right here, again, has Democrats freaking out and the mainstream liberal media freaking out, because the Wall Street Journal is essentially exposing the truth about Joe Biden and how some of these politicians, again, Republicans and Democrats, feel about working with Joe Biden. And it seems as if Biden is relying on his handlers and everybody else to do his job. And again, MSNBC, The Morning Joe, Joe Scarborough, Mika Brzezinski, they didn't really like this report too much.
Live pictures of Paris, where President Biden wakes up in a few hours, literally with the world's eyes upon him. We'll see if the Eiffel Tower lights up for us. All the more so because of a devastating Wall Street Journal piece that dropped just before he got on Air Force One. Behind closed doors, Biden shows signs of slipping. Participants in meetings said the 81-year-old president performed poorly at times. The White House said Biden is sharp and his critics are playing partisan politics.
This was basically House Republicans whacking.
Why didn't they just ask Marjorie Taylor Greene to
exactly.
Why
yeah, they could have
just. And Lauren Boebert.
Yeah, it's really shocking, especially when you see what Kevin McCarthy has said repeatedly, publicly and behind the scenes about Biden on those same days when they were negotiating.
The strong feelings you're seeing about this article comes also because the context of this race and these two candidates, it's interesting. That's all I'll say. Anyhow, that flies in the face of what McCarthy said about Biden's effectiveness in the past. From Politico last year, quote, McCarthy mocked Biden's age and mental acuity in public.
In public, like he did in this article.
While privately telling allies that he found the president sharp and substantive in their conversations, a contradiction that left a deep impression on the White House.
Yeah, so I don't understand how a man like Joe Scarborough can openly call himself a conservative, but at the same time root for the most progressive administration in history. Now, again, I understand never Trumpers in the sense that, okay, you just don't like Trump, you don't like his personality, you don't think that he is a traditional conservative in regards to how he acts. Like, I get it, right? I understand that. But, you know, openly rooting for Biden, okay, and denying reality when it's right in front of your face that Biden is mentally declining, I don't understand that. I don't understand becoming a full-blown propagandist for the most progressive outlet in the mainstream liberal media at NBC. But with that being said, I want to play this clip here of the Wall Street Journal reporter explaining exactly where this article came from and her sources, because the Wall Street Journal is under attack for putting out this article, okay? They're not supposed to put out any articles that are critical of Biden like this, especially questioning his mental capabilities, especially considering how that is one of the factors that is hurting Biden the most in the polls, right? When you look at the matchup between him and Trump, what a lot of voters are concerned about is the fact that, hey, it seems like Biden is just not up to the challenge mentally, okay? At least not as much as Trump, and that is weighing Biden down, okay? So this is why the White House and the liberal media, they're fuming over this article. So I want to give this woman the opportunity to explain herself, right? Even though I don't think she has to explain herself. Joe Biden just walking around kind of explains everything for us. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it.
The group also included administration officials and Democrats who did not find fault with the president's performance. The Journal also said that most of those who were critical of Biden's performance were Republicans, but some Democrats did say that the president is showing signs of his age.
Yeah, which is something that Joe Scarborough conveniently left out from his little rant, okay? He totally forgot to mention that, yeah, some Democrats actually agree with Kevin McCarthy, right? While he is, trashing Kevin McCarthy, which, hey, I'm not going to defend Kevin McCarthy, but still, he completely leaves out the fact that, hey, this isn't just a Republican thing. Democrats feel this way. And I guarantee you, most, if not all Democrats feel this way. They just can't come out and say it publicly, okay? One way to test the integrity of a Democrat is to ask them about Joe Biden's mental state. If any of these people come out here and say that Biden's as sharp as a tack, or that he's as sharp as he's ever been, even though he's clearly not, these people will lie to you about anything, right? I'm so serious. How can you trust anybody that tells you that, yeah, I spend a whole lot of time around Joe Biden and he is mentally sharp? It's just, they're just lying to your face, right? They just think that you're stupid, okay? So, again, I'm just saying, the best way to tell if somebody's a propagandist is how they talk about Joe Biden's mental state.
And the White House responded. They said, quote, congressional Republicans, foreign leaders, and nonpartisan national security experts have made clear in their own words that President Biden is a savvy and effective leader who has a deep record of legislative accomplishment. Now, in 2024, House Republicans are making false claims as a political tactic that flatly contradict previous statements made by themselves and their colleagues. Wall Street Journal congressional reporter Siobhan Hughes is one of the two reporters on the byline of the story, and she's with us now. Siobhan, thank you so much for being with us. This story obviously is making a lot of waves, as you know. The headline, behind closed doors, Biden showing signs of slipping. What does slipping mean? And is the picture that is painted here different from what voters are seeing in public?
The picture that's being painted here is one of a president who, behind closed doors, is very much the same as what you see in public. Somebody who has good days, good moments, but also bad days and bad moments. And the reason that's significant is the White House position has been that if only you could see the president behind closed doors, if only you could see what we see, he's absolutely sharp as a tack. And
you know what's hilarious about that? Is that, well, if they simply wanted to prove to the American people that Joe Biden's so mentally sharp, then have him do more press conferences, have him do more speeches, have him do more off-the-cuff interviews, right? More sit-down stuff. Have him go on Fox News or Newsmax, right? That would be the best way to prove it. But yeah, these people are gaslighting you, saying, no, you don't understand. It's a Republican conspiracy theory, right? That Biden's not as mentally sharp as he used to be, that he's declining. You just got to see him behind closed doors. Okay, well, how about you open up the doors, right? Why don't you open up the doors? Because if you open up the doors, then Biden can prove to the world that, hey, I'm good to go, right? Nothing to worry about. But the reason why they won't do it is because they know that something is wrong. something is seriously wrong. Biden has done a significantly less amount of press conferences than his predecessors. Why is that? It's because he just doesn't have the ability to consistently speak with the media and to push his agenda without making major mistakes and gaffes that will make his administration look bad, right? That will reveal the truth about his mental state. And this is why they continue to hide him. And then they say, oh, no, you guys just need to see him behind closed doors. Yo, the Democrats and their gaslighting, man, it never ceases to amaze me. It really doesn't, okay? These people will tell you anything, bruh. They will piss on your leg and tell you it's raining. It doesn't matter what it is. I mean, the American people should be offended. They really should be offended by some of the things that Democrats come out and tell us.
And so this aims to find out, well, what is the president like behind closed doors? It's what's happening there, different from what the public sees. And the answer is not very much.
Siobhan, you write that most of those who said that Biden performed poorly were Republicans, but you noted that some Democrats said that he showed his age in several exchanges. Not to repeat Brianna's question, but I'm wondering what showed his age entails, because there are several instances in the piece where different encounters can be read different ways, and people came away from meetings with different impressions of what happened. So I'm wondering how you navigated that in your reporting.
So it's fair. That is very, very tricky terrain. But we focused on 3 meetings in particular all over the course of the past year. And there were things like mumbling, speaking in such a low voice that people could only hear every other word or couldn't understand what he was saying. This over-reliance on note cards, using note cards to make what were very obvious points and using them in ways that affected the spontaneity of the conversation. Having a loose command of the details. Things like in the Ukraine meeting we talked about in January of this year, using note cards to make the point that Ukraine aid needed to be on the table when everybody in that room, by and large, agreed that Ukraine aid needed to pass. That wasn't the question. The question is, how do we do this quickly? And
well, he doesn't know, right? He doesn't know the details or anything like that because he's not there, right? So his job really is to come out and to pretend like he's running things when he's not. So all he needs to know is general, oh, we're sending aid to Ukraine. Okay. He doesn't need to know why or how, right? He doesn't need to know any of the details. Okay? That's why he doesn't know the details. That's why he has loose command of the details, because he doesn't need to know them. His handlers are running the administration, not him. But yeah, it is embarrassing and it is frustrating if you are a lawmaker and you're going into a meeting to have a detailed discussion about a policy agenda with the President of the United States, and the President of the United States begins talking about the need to do something from a very general standpoint when you're there to discuss the details, right? We've already agreed on the general need to send aid, which I don't agree with. I personally don't agree. I'm just saying, like, this is the context of the meeting, the people in the meeting, right? They all agree, hey, we need to send aid. Let's talk about the details. And Biden wants to talk about the need, okay? And it's like, no. This is not what the meeting is for, right? The meeting is to get into the nitty gritty. But again, Biden doesn't understand that. He doesn't understand anything. And again, that's my biggest problem with Joe Biden. My biggest problem with Joe Biden is not his stutter. It's not him fumbling over his words, okay? It's the fact that Biden is claiming he's meeting with dead people. It's the fact that Biden doesn't know when his son died. It's the fact that Biden thinks his son died in Iraq. Biden thinks he was a civil rights activist. Right? And stuff like that. Okay? Biden is just not aware. He's not aware of his surroundings. I don't think he's making decisions, and that concerns me because I don't know who we elected. Who did we elect? Well, I didn't vote for him. So, who did, allegedly half the country elect, right? Who's in office right now? That's the real question. That's the real concern.
So it is the preponderance of the detail that we gathered that led to that headline.
Former House Speaker Kevin McCarthy went on the record with you guys for the story. He said, quote, I used to meet with him when he was vice president. I'd go to his house. He's not the same person. You also in the story mention some of the differing things that McCarthy has kind of said about Biden. So I wonder how you can kind of make heads or tails of that. It was reported, of course, by the New York Times and Politico last year that he would publicly skewer Biden, but then privately he would tell his allies that he found Biden to be sharp in their meetings.
So we heard from administration officials that McCarthy did say that the president was sharp in meetings. Our reporting also suggested that McCarthy was doing that tactically because he had to get along with President Biden at a time when the country was at really risk of a debt default if there was not some type of a deal. So you can take that for what it's worth. You can decide McCarthy is not credible or that he is, but that's what our reporting showed.
Yeah. Again, this is just basic negotiations, okay? This is the reason why Trump, he likes to compliment a lot of our foreign adversaries or people that, you know, the establishment tells us are foreign adversaries, because he understands from a negotiation and a business perspective, you don't want to go into a meeting where you're trying to get something done by insulting the person that you need to work with, right? That's just like basic etiquette, okay? So Kevin McCarthy, you know, telling Joe Biden or the White House in private that, hey, you know, I find you to be the sharpest ever, right? You're the sharpest knife in the drawer. That doesn't really mean anything, okay? Because he's trying to play nice in order to further his agenda, which would make sense, right? That makes perfect sense. But, you know, hey, when people ask you the real deal Holyfield, okay, what's up with this guy Biden? This guy's, he belongs in a nursing home, right? This is what they all really believe, right? This is what everybody believes. But again, the Democrats, because they don't have any integrity, okay, they can't come out here and say that. They can't say that. If Democrats had integrity, they would force Joe Biden to step down. But they'd much rather have a puppet than somebody that actually is aware of what's happening. Because if somebody was actually aware of what was happening, then they would push back, right? They may push back against some things. Biden's not pushing back against anything. They tell Biden to jump, he says how high. Okay, just like right now, they told Biden, all right, Biden, it's time for you now to pretend like you want to secure the border. He says, okay, right, that's all I'm going to do. Okay? Biden's not running anything. That's the problem.
I want to give you an opportunity to respond to several Democratic lawmakers who said that they were interviewed for the piece. Senators Coons, Murray, Speaker Emerita Pelosi, North Carolina Governor Roy Cooper. They said that they were interviewed for the piece, but their quotes weren't included. Some of them are arguing that there is a slant to this story. What's your response?
So it's true that we interviewed a number of people, and all of the Democrats saying that they were spoken to. Yes, we spoke to a number of people. It's true that their views of the president were represented. Maybe their quote was not the quote that was selected, but other people's were. And it's also true that my job here is to be the agent of the reader. I am not here to publish the quote provided to me or us by every single Democrat. I just can't do that.
You know what's hilarious about this is that you have Democrats taking issue with the Wall Street Journal having a slant in this story when the whole media has a slant towards Democrats. Hence why we call the media the mainstream liberal media, okay? Because they have a liberal slant. So you have this one story that tells the truth about Joe Biden. Oh, you're biased. There's a slant here, right? Well, again, the whole media conglomerate is slanted towards the left in the White House, okay? They kissed Joe Biden's ass. If the media was honest, you have stories like this coming out every day, but because you don't, okay, that tells you how dishonest the media is and how everything is in Biden's favor. But despite the fact that everything's in Biden's favor, the American people aren't stupid, and they can see that, hey, this guy, he's just not fit. He's just not mentally fit, physically or mentally. Really, to be quite honest with you, he's not fit. And, you know, it's nothing to be ashamed of. It's just one of those things. Like, he's old, right? He's past his prime. And it's time for him to retire and live out the rest of his days in a nursing home, because what is happening to Biden right now, you can argue, is elder abuse, right? Making this man continue to take these long trips to do what I would imagine is a very demanding job and stressful job in his old age. You know, I just don't think this is the right thing. I think it's immoral. And I think Democrats coming out here and continuing to cover up and to lie to the American people, gaslight the American people about the state of Joe Biden, makes them responsible and culpable for Joe Biden's deterioration, because certainly doing his job is not helping him, right? It's really not. But hey, let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.